The deadliest crime lord in Manhattan just took a sniper bullet straight to the chest to save a hotel maid. Dominic Vasari controlled underground casinos and massive shipping routes, yet he threw his own body in front of a high-powered rifle for a woman who scrubbed floors for a living. As he bled out onto the dark asphalt, he confessed a shocking, heartbreaking secret that shifted the balance of the entire criminal underworld. Let us step into the quiet dark together. Picture Dominic Vasari to the streets. He is a terrifying architect of violence. But right now he is nothing more than a broken father, brought to his knees across a heavy Persian rug. He desperately pleads with his 6-year-old son, Leo, begging the boy just to meet his eyes. But the child is lost in panic, hands clamped over his ears, screaming without making a single sound. Outside, an ambulance wails in the distance. It is a stark reminder that the most brutal battles we ever face happen behind our own closed doors, no matter how invincible we appear to the rest of the world. Dominic burned through $2 million on 7 elite doctors, and nothing worked. Even his hardened enforcers stand frozen at the door. Men who have ruined rivals for less, completely unable to move an inch. Right in the absolute center of this crushing meltdown, a housekeeper rolls her laundry cart past the open door. She does not ask questions or utter a single word. Instead, she simply grabs a soft white washcloth and twists the fabric into a little rabbit with long floppy ears. Incredibly, the panicked boy stops thrashing and goes entirely still. It reminds us that the quietest, simplest gestures often carry far more healing power than throwing endless money at a wounded heart. The maid gently sets the rabbit on the carpet a few feet away, sits back on her heels and waits. Slowly, Leo crawls forward. He reaches out a shaking hand, touches the soft ear, and actually smiles. Dominic just lifts his head, absolutely terrified that breathing too loud will completely shatter this miracle. Dominic is completely stunned. His voice is a hollow crack when he asks who she is. The maid stands up, smooths her wrinkled apron, and straightens her name tag. She looks at this terrifying boss, says she is nobody, apologizes, and vanishes down the hall. Her tag reads Savannah, making $14.50 an hour. It reminds us that you truly never know who might walk into a room and completely change your fate. That fleeting moment sparked the bloodiest turf war Dominic ever fought, bringing him the only love he ever trusted. Now he sits at his desk on the 47th floor. He ignores his whiskey, obsessively rewatching the security footage on a loop. The towel, the rabbit, his boy smiling. 4 guards just stand by in heavy, suffocating silence. His secretary slides a folder across the desk and slips out like a ghost. The Vasari family controls the port, the casinos, and the city rackets. His father moved illegal drugs, but when Dominic took the throne, he cut out the darkest parts of the syndicate. It proves we are never doomed to repeat the toxic mistakes of our parents. We always hold the power to carve a better path, but choosing the right thing was not enough to keep his wife safe. 2 years ago, a stray bullet meant for Dominic ripped through their car. It struck Alina while she was desperately shielding their child. Little Leo watched his mother slip away right there in the back seat. That agonizing, bloody trauma is exactly why the boy has not spoken a single word since that horrible night. Duca, his loyal right-hand man for 22 years, steps into the room. He ran a background check on the maid and swears she is clean, but Dominic remains suspicious. 7 elite doctors could not do what this girl managed in 30 seconds. Frankie reads the file. Savannah Reeves, 27. No criminal record. Her younger brother drowned in 2014, and her grandmother passed away last year. Dominic instantly clocks the connection, asking if the boy was autistic. The files are sealed, but Frankie found proof to confirm it. Dominic walks over to his massive window, staring out over the cold lights of Manhattan. It is a harsh reminder that you can hold all the wealth and power in the world, but it absolutely cannot buy the true peace your wounded soul needs. Dominic orders Frankie to bring her up tomorrow, warning him not to reveal who is asking or she will run. Frankie asks what he should say. Dominic coldly replies to ask if she wants to keep her job. It is a ruthless move. To understand how a maid reached a traumatized kid when experts failed, we must jump back 19 years to Ohio. Savannah was just 8. Her mother walked out, and her father only showed up to steal cash. All that remained was a tiny house, Grandma June, and her brother Thomas, who never spoke. Life deals some of us a brutal hand from the start, but those exact painful struggles build the deep empathy we need later on. Savannah was forced to grow up far too fast, sacrificing her childhood just to keep her fragile world from falling apart. Little Thomas was sensitive to the world. He hated the hum of fluorescent lights, ate only white foods, and despised clothing tags against his skin. The doctors slapped the word autism on his chart like a boring weather report. But Grandma June was an unstoppable force. She taught special education for 31 years and never flinched. She told young Savannah to always watch his hands instead of his eyes, because hands never lie. That is a massive lesson we all need, sometimes. To truly understand someone, you must stop waiting for words and just watch their quiet actions. Savannah completely adapted. She learned to fold a washcloth into a little rabbit because Thomas refused to sleep without one. She learned to softly hum instead of sing, carving out a safe space just for him. Now, picture this crushing heartbreak. Savannah takes little Thomas to the pool. She watches him for an hour, but steps away for 4 minutes to buy a popsicle. 4 minutes, and the absolute worst happens. He drowns, she goes mute from the shock, drops out, and slings plates at a diner. Grandma June dies when Savannah is 24, leaving one final rule: do not let his death make you terrified of other kids. Savannah packs her broken life and escapes to New York. She wears a bracelet of his hair, carrying the raw weight of that day. Cut back to her at the hotel, sliding down the wall in the linen room, breaking down. Here is a vital life lesson. The heaviest guilt always stems from our smallest choices. But you simply cannot let the past anchor you in the dark forever. Shaking because she recognized the terrified look on that boy's face. It has haunted her nightmares for 11 years. She whispers to herself, apologizing to Tommy, swearing. She is not walking away this time. Her coworker Maggie bursts in, demanding to know what she did to that man's son. Savannah panics, offering to quit, but Maggie drops a terrifying truth: resign. Sweetheart, the Don just asked for your name. Absolute chills. By 9 the next morning, an enforcer marches her through metal detectors into a shadowy office. Dominic stands by the window. Savannah instantly checks his hands, clean nails, and a heavy wedding ring he should have taken off years ago. Remember this lesson. Sometimes stepping directly into the fire is the only way to stop running from your past. To this tension, Dominic has calluses on his knuckles, the kind a man gets from hitting a heavy bag at 3 in the morning, when demons keep him awake. He states she did something doctors could not do, demanding to know how. Savannah plays it cool, saying she just folded a towel. The Don does not play games. He asks for her dead brother's name. Savannah freezes, asking if he looked into her past. Dominic admits he investigates everyone. He says Thomas' name, noting he died in 2014. He sits down at her eye level and drops a massive offer: $2,000 a week to be his son's companion. Savannah tries to back out, claiming she lacks a degree. The lesson here? True value is never about pieces of paper. It is about the raw empathy you carry. Dominic shuts her excuse down. He hired 7 experts, but his kid refuses to look at them. Savannah takes a breath and drops a bombshell. She refuses to take his money if she cannot deliver, and she knows what his family does. It is a hard pass. The enforcer Frankie stops breathing. Nobody has told the Don no to his face in 9 years. Dominic leans in, asking if she is afraid of him. Her response is ice cold. She states she's only afraid of what she does not know, and she does not know him. He respects her nerve, giving her 48 hours to decide. She walks out without a glance back. For the first time in 2 years, the boss feels curiosity instead of crushing grief. The lesson? Standing your ground always commands far more respect than bending the knee to power. At her tiny apartment, the room shakes every time a train rips by outside. But you and I know a person gets used to any noise eventually. She sits on her bed and pulls out a heartbreaking old tin box. Inside is a faded photo of Thomas at the pool, his raggedy stuffed rabbit, and a hospital bracelet. It is heavy, raw grief. She closes her eyes, flashing back to the last night her brother was alive. They were on the porch, and he gently traced a shape into her palm with his tiny finger. 2 long ears and a round body. He never made eye contact, but that was his beautiful, quiet way of saying he loved her. Here is a profound life lesson to carry with you. Love does not always need loud words. Sometimes the quietest gestures carry the most massive emotional weight in our lives. Let us examine this tragic frame together. In the suffocating dark of her room, the emotional dam finally shatters. Savannah crumbles to the floor as grief pours out in raw sobs. Her phone vibrates, cutting the silence. It is Miss Maggie, demanding the truth. Savannah confesses the chilling reality of the Mafia boss and his impossible offer. The pause that follows is thick enough to crush bone. Maggie reminds her that while Dominic walks in shadow, his boy is an innocent lamb. If Savannah's own lost son had lived, would she not pray a stranger might save him? It reveals a vital life lesson. You must never punish a child for the wicked sins of their father. True compassion requires stepping into the darkest shadows to rescue the helpless. Maggie lays down one absolute law. If Savannah ever feels a chill of danger, she must call. At 7:59 sharp, Savannah phones Frankie, the weathered enforcer. Her voice does not waver as she accepts the dark contract on 3 rigid conditions. First, she keeps her humble hotel job. Second, she demands exactly $600 a week, legally documented to wash away the blood. Frankie stammers, utterly disarmed. Her final condition strikes the deepest chord. If little Leo shows a single ounce of fear, she walks away forever. A heavy respect settles over the enforcer. She is the first soul to ever negotiate a Mafia salary downward. It leaves us with a profound life lesson. Your unyielding personal integrity is the absolute strongest armor you will ever wear in a deeply corrupt world. Into the shadows with me to watch a subtle shift. Frankie observes ruthless boss crack a faint smile, the first to grace his hardened face in 2 agonizing years. Dominic hangs up, cementing Savannah for Monday. But the fragile peace shatters as the heavy mahogany door swings open. In glides Camila, a hollow woman clinking to the crime lord. She floats across the room in a stunning designer dress, flashing an empty smile. Carrying expensive macarons for a traumatized boy, she plays the immaculate trophy wife, yet the coldness in her eyes betrays her. People can drape their darkest demons in silk, but a rotten core always bleeds through. This grants us a vital life lesson. True beauty is found only in how gently you hold the broken, never in the shallow luxuries you buy. Notice how Camila blindly ignores the ghost haunting the grand room. She never whispers the name of Alina, the beloved wife Dominic tragically buried. She merely kisses his tense jaw, asking if his broken son will eat her pastries. Dominic is miles away, his hollow eyes anchored to a painful memory of a humble woman, quietly folding a towel. Soon after, on the bustling avenue, the illusion shatters. Camila pulls out a burner phone, angrily texting a contact that the boss still refuses to touch her. The reply is chillingly brief, demanding absolute patience. Meanwhile, across the river, Savannah sits in silence, tenderly tracing a faded photograph. It brings us a beautiful life lesson. Real love means carrying the heaviest burdens, doing the quiet, selfless things to honor those we have loved and lost. Savannah remains oblivious that just floors beneath her, the treacherous girlfriend is frantically deleting dark messages. When Monday breaks, Savannah steps from the gleaming elevator carrying no designer luggage. She clutches a worn canvas tote bag, laden with plain washcloths, pale origami paper, and simple homemade slime. Frankie guides her to an intimidating white door. He quietly warns her the boy has been awake since 6, refusing food, and the dangerous crime boss is hovering nearby. Savannah does not flinch. She offers a calm, steady nod, refusing to back away from this tragic fight. It proves a beautifully simple life lesson. True power never requires vast wealth or high status. The absolute greatest weapon you can ever bring to heal a broken soul is a genuinely kind, unwavering heart. The heavy door creaks open, revealing a pure nightmare of sterile grief. The room is violently devoid of warmth, drowning in blinding white. Flawless rugs and cold hospital sheets dominate the frame. There are no colorful toys. It is a suffocating tomb built by a father terrified of confronting his own bleeding heart. In the furthest corner, tiny Leo sits paralyzed, nervously folding a scrap of blank paper into nothing. It is a portrait of pure tragedy. Hovering like a vulture above him is Camila. Draped in cashmere, she drips with an artificial sweetness that chokes the very air. This scene serves us a profound life lesson. True emotional safety can never be bought with hollow words or expensive gifts. It requires a gentle, deeply genuine human presence to make a shattered spirit feel secure. Camila pitches her voice to an unnatural high, screeching at the traumatized boy to say hello. The harsh sound strikes the silent room like a blaring alarm. Leo violently flinches, shrinking deeper into the shadows. This is the exact moment. Savannah proves her masterful understanding of the human heart. She takes a slow, calculated breath. She sees Camila for the walking disaster she is, choking the air with a suffocating perfume. Instead of rushing in, Savannah executes a flawlessly gentle move. She completely ignores the terrified child. She simply lowers herself onto the rug 3 meters away, pulls out pale blue origami paper, and calmly begins to fold. It echoes a beautifully simple life lesson. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for a deeply panicked soul is to sit to silence and give them the space to breathe. I have both met a venomous soul, exactly like this. Camila swivels toward Savannah, pasting on a plastic smile. She tries to flex a shallow psychology fact she skimmed off the internet. Savannah refuses the bait. Without ever lifting her steady eyes from the paper, she cuts the woman off. Her tone is impossibly gentle, yet forged in unbreakable steel. She calmly commands Camila to leave the room for 30 minutes, to give the exhausted child peace. The smile violently shatters on Camila's painted face. She sputters a pathetic excuse, letting her cruel eyes rake over Savannah's cheap uniform, worn shoes, and scuffed watch. The venom practically drips from her stare before she storms out. Shutting the heavy door, it leaves us with a vital life lesson. True class and profound inner grace have absolutely nothing to do with the price tag on your clothes. Tragic irony suffocating the room is unbearable. Savannah has no idea this woman only visits the trembling boy when the crime boss is home to applaud the act, but here is the most agonizing detail. Camila's heavy perfume is the exact same scent the treacherous night nurse wore 2 years ago, the night little Leo was covered in blood and stopped speaking forever. His tiny body still remembers the raw terror. Savannah remains blind to this violent history, yet her maternal instincts are flawless. She calmly switches off the harsh fluorescent lights and yanks back those suffocating heavy drapes. She lets the warm golden sunlight flood the sterile room. Chasing away the cold shadows, it serves as a profound life lesson for us all. Sometimes opening the heavy blinds and letting the warm natural light pour in is the crucial first step toward healing a shattered soul. Savannah settles back onto the rug and gets to work. Her hands move like poetry, folding a tiny paper rabbit, a delicate swan, and a dog, letting 30 minutes pass in pure silence. Then she hears it, the faint scrape of a velvet cushion. She plays it beautifully cool, keeping her eyes glued to the paper. Little Leo is silently crawling across the floor. He stops 1 meter away, mesmerized by the rhythmic motion of her gentle hands. Without looking up, Savannah slowly slides the blue paper rabbit across the rug. He does not grab it, but he does not flinch away, either. Slowly she begins to hum a deep, soulful tune from her grandmother. It is a low, vibrating melody, a pure, maternal sound that makes a terrified heart feel safe. It teaches us a profound life lesson. True human connection is rarely loud. It is built in the quietest, most patient moments of our fragile lives. Let the camera linger here, because the emotional payoff is miraculous. The broken boy tilts his head, allowing that soothing hum to wash over his shattered nerves. An hour drifts by until Frankie taps on the heavy door. At that exact, breathless second, the breakthrough happens. With one violently trembling hand, Leo bravely reaches out across the rug. He snags the paper rabbit and tucks it into his pajama pocket. Savannah does not dare ruin it by making a spectacle. She simply offers a warm thank you and promises to return tomorrow. Leo remains silent, but as she leaves, his haunted eyes track her every step. It provides a beautiful life lesson. Genuine trust is always built in quiet, agonizing inches, never in loud miles. Meanwhile, a toxic poison is brewing. Camila has transformed a luxurious suite into a paranoid lair, glaring at a hidden security monitor. Walk with me to uncover how deep this wicked conspiracy goes. Camila watches the paper rabbit slide into the boy's pocket through the grainy security feed. A cold panic sets in. She grabs her burner phone, texting her consultant that they have a dangerous new problem and must speed up their plans. Fast forward 2 weeks. Savannah is relentlessly showing up 4 mornings a week. She rides the subway, walks midtown, and heads to the penthouse. Clutching that battered tote bag, the emotional progress is slow but real. During their 3rd session, while folding a blue swan, Leo bravely reaches out and rests his fragile hand against hers for 3 entire seconds. Savannah keeps folding, unfazed. Letting the boy guide the quiet moment, it proves a profound life lesson. True devotion is simply about showing up day after day, until the frozen ice finally melts. Savannah sits completely still, her posture calm, while her heart hammers a frantic rhythm against her ribs. During their 5th session, the heavy air suddenly shifts. Little Leo crosses the floor and pulls a worn book from the shelf. It looks ordinary, until the light catches a faded fingerprint pressed into the corner, the lingering ghost of his murdered mother, Elena. A freezing chill bleeds into Savannah. The boy drops the book into her lap. You and I both know the desperate instinct to force a breakthrough, but she resists. She simply turns the heavy pages, her voice a soft hum as she names the dark blues and grays of the painted water. She anchors the room in pure peace. It reminds us of a vital truth. Sometimes, the deepest healing happens when we just sit quietly with a broken soul, demanding absolutely nothing. For 40 agonizing minutes, this fragile child rests his weight against her knee, breathing so shallowly he barely seems alive. By their 7th meeting, Savannah places a tray of soft kinetic sand on the table. The boy is mesmerized, burying his trembling fingers into the grains. Slowly, he carves one large circle, then presses a tiny one right beside it. Savannah instantly reads the tragic metaphor. The largest circle is his dead mother, and the clinging shape is him. She refuses to invade his grief. Instead, she gently molds a third circle, placing it at a safe distance. It is a silent vow that she will guard him in the dark without forcing her way in. Respecting a wounded heart can truly alter the course of a human life. Leo stares at her shape in the sand. He does not pull it closer, but he leaves it perfectly untouched. Out in the shadowy hallway, the feared Mafia kingpin Dominic stands frozen like a stone gargoyle. His enforcer steps up, whispering that the boss has been rooted there for a full hour. Dominic refuses to blink. His dark eyes remain locked on the heavy door as he whispers a devastating confession. For 2 agonizing years, his mere presence has sent his own flesh and blood spiraling into panic. Inside, during their 10th session, Savannah sits on the floorboards, softly humming a mournful melody. Suddenly, a fragile vibration rises in the quiet room. Little Leo is humming back. Savannah locks her hands tight, pretending the earth has not just split wide open. True love often demands that we swallow our greatest victories, hiding our desperate joy so the broken people we care for can finally feel completely safe. The second, the heavy door clicks shut. Savannah slumps against the freezing hallway plaster. She buries her face in her trembling hands and weeps without a single sound, terrified the boy inside might hear her shattering. That mournful melody was the exact tune her late brother sang before her own life was ripped apart. You and I both know the cruel irony of the human condition, the people carrying the deepest, most agonizing scars are usually the ones holding the bandages for everyone else. Savannah wipes her tears, forces a gentle smile, and walks straight back into the fire. By session 12, the massive dam finally breaks. Little Leo stands, crosses the silent room, and gently grasps her fingers. He pulls her toward the window glass to watch a gray bird. Savannah whispers its name, and the silent child flawlessly mouths it back. Savannah hums with desperate hope, because the child just formed a word, yet she represses her joy while waiting by the elevator doors. Suddenly the sweet door swings open. Camila, the mob boss' dangerously bitter girlfriend, steps into the light. She wears a meticulously crafted smile as she shoves a chilled glass of juice into Savannah's hand. This is a tragic law of nature. You must always watch your back when a profoundly jealous soul offers a sweet gift. By pure luck, Maggie, the sharp veteran maid, marches down the corridor. She boldly announces an urgent phone call, offering Savannah an elegant escape without tasting the drink. Always pay your deepest respect to the quiet workers who fade into the background. They are the silent witnesses who see every single demon lurking in the dark corners of the house. As elevator doors slide shut, Maggie keeps her eyes dead ahead, dropping a terrifying piece of truth into the silence. She whispers that Camila had been stalking the hallway outside the child's room for 20 minutes, hovering like a vengeful ghost. Savannah feels her blood turn to ice, but the older woman fiercely warns her to stay alert. Back upstairs, the beautiful mask melts entirely off Camilla's face, boiling with manic rage. She marches to the window and dumps the tainted liquid into a potted white orchid. She had laced that glass with enough heavy sedatives to drug Savannah into a deep sleep for days. Her vicious logic was remarkably simple. Break the fragile routine. Banish the teacher and let the broken boy slip back into the dark. True malice rarely arrives screaming. It quietly grows from the rotting soil of a deeply hollow heart. Camilla violently shatters her empty glass against the granite counter and reaches for a burner phone. Her cowardly poisoned trick evaporated thanks to one vigilant maid, leaving Savannah to march back into the penthouse every single morning. Savannah remains unbothered, bleeding her own heart into this silent boy. Then Wednesday arrives like a sudden storm. Dominic, the untouchable king of the criminal underworld, pulls his black sedan up to the high-rise hours early. He literally walks out of a massive sit-down with ruthless bosses, abandoning millions of dollars and leaving his terrified crew standing in the dust. This forces us to confront a beautiful truth. No matter how much blood money or raw power sits on the table, life will eventually demand that you drop the entire world to show up for the ones you truly love. The kingpin rides the elevator upward in complete isolation. Stepping into the sprawling penthouse, he stops dead at the archway. Every ounce of his brutal authority is stripped away by the scenes unfolding on the rug. Savannah sits barefoot, calmly molding kinetic sand. Pressed tightly against her, resting his fragile shoulder on her arm, is little Leo. He is not trembling. He is simply rolling out a ribbon of sand. Then the absolute impossible occurs. A hesitant curve pulls at the corner of the broken boy's mouth. A real, genuine smile, the hardened criminal stands paralyzed, horrified that drawing a single breath might shatter the quiet miracle. Savannah lifts her chin, her calm eyes finding his dark shadow. Beautiful moments are agonizingly fragile. Sometimes, the bravest thing a person can do is simply stand back in the shadows and let the light exist. Dominic offers the faintest shake of his head, a desperate, silent plea, begging her not to break the delicate spell. The ruthless boss sinks into a leather armchair, remaining paralyzed for 20 minutes. He watches his wounded boy, and he studies the quiet woman who breathed a heartbeat back into his empty home. When the exhausted child finally falls asleep, Savannah gently drapes a blanket over his shoulders. Only then does Dominic step forward. He guides her onto the freezing balcony, while the city lights bleed across the dark sky. Out in the biting cold, the most feared man in the metropolis picks up a silver pot and pours her coffee with his own hands. This paints a profoundly beautiful lesson. True power is never built on brute force or terror. Genuine strength requires the absolute humility to quietly serve the person who healed the ones you love. She drinks the coffee black, bitter and sharp against the winter air. Dominic silently respects the bold choice. Gripping the freezing metal railing, he confesses that a stranger has achieved what his own blood could not. Savannah refuses to let him drown in pity. She reveals that the silent boy actually tracks his father's heavy footsteps through the halls every night. Traumatized children are not empty, she explains. They simply speak a language the world is too busy to learn. When asked how she knows this, she unveils her own ghost, a brother lost at 10, and the suffocating guilt dragging her down. The mobster offers no cheap sympathy. He merely drops his armor, admitting his wife was violently taken 2 years ago. You and I have probably lived this painful truth. Agonizing grief always recognizes its own dark reflection in the eyes of another survivor. Winter wind rips around the balcony as Dominic stares into the dark. His voice cracks, confessing his greatest sin. He was not watching his wife closely enough that afternoon. They stand together, two haunted people sharing the crushing burden of survival. Then he unearths his nightmare. 2 summers ago, a rival syndicate lit up their car. Elena shoved their son to the floorboards, taking the fatal bullets herself. The boy was pinned beneath her body when her heart stopped. Savannah places her cup down as the horrifying puzzle clicks together. She looks this dangerous man dead in the eyes and declares his son is not broken. He consciously chose silence. The last time that child raised his voice, his mother bled to death. Trauma is a brutal architect. It forces the fragile human mind to build desperate walls just to survive the unimaginable. Anna's voice trembles in the wind as she paints the devastating picture. Little Leo likely screamed for his mother as shattered glass rained down. In his traumatized mind, making a sound became the literal trigger that murdered the woman he loved. Dominic freezes, his massive palm slams the metal table, his eyes flushing red with a father's pure agony. He dragged his boy to 7 elite doctors, and every single expert missed this truth. Savannah tries to soften the blow, whispering she is merely a tutor, not a professional. But the Don feels the absolute truth of her words echoing deep inside his marrow. They remain on that freezing balcony for hours, letting their coffee turn to bitter ice. This leaves us with a haunting truth. Sometimes it takes the compassionate eyes of a stranger to uncover the agonizing answers we simply cannot bear to face on our own. Let us look closely at this frame together. The heavy doors slide shut, sealing Savannah away, and Dominic's polite mask shatters. He drifts out to the balcony. The pulsing neon city catches in his eyes, an electric beast that has spent years chewing away his humanity. Frankie steps up softly, asking if he is holding it together. Dominic never turns from the void. He simply whispers, asking if a genuinely good soul can survive their twisted reality. Frankie freezes. 3 generations of serving this bloodline, and no boss has ever shown such fatal doubt. In the darkened corner, Camila watches this fracture happen in real time. It is a tragedy we must all face. A guilty conscience will always bleed right through the cracks, no matter how heavy the armor you wear. The tension in the house stretches so thin it threatens to snap. Over 10 agonizing days, the Mafia boss fractures his routines. Instead of vanishing until dawn, he walks in at exactly 5. He skips a massive gala. He takes syndicate calls standing in the kitchen, his dark eyes locked on the hallway. Camila slinks downstairs in a stunning backless dress, with 2 glasses of expensive wine, but he barely gives her a glance. She has never felt a freezing rejection like this. Pure panic sets in. Snapping into survival mode, she orchestrates a fake Sunday dinner to corner Savannah. The lesson here is incredibly simple. When someone who openly despises you suddenly pretends to be your closest friend, do not politely smile. You turn around and run the other way. Camilla dials up the artificial sweetness, begging Savannah to stay for dinner. But Savannah possesses the sharp instincts of a true survivor. She drops a perfectly polite, freezing cold rejection, claiming she has a shift downstairs at 6. The elevator doors slide shut right on Camilla and her burning fury. 2 days later, a mysterious gift bag appears in the staff room. Inside sits a gorgeous camel coat from an upscale boutique. A note claims it simply did not fit Camilla anymore. When Maggie warns her the jacket costs over $1,000, Savannah instantly smells the trap. She shoves that heavy coat deep into the dark corners of her metal locker. It is a harsh but necessary life lesson. Never accept an expensive gift when the hidden strings attached are only meant to choke you. The coat was a Trojan horse, hiding a listening device stitched into the silk lining. Because Savannah locked it away, the bug captured nothing but the echoing darkness of a metal locker for 9 straight days. Camilla is boiling over. Crossing the line into outright crime, she tracks down a hotel technician, drowning in gambling debt, sliding $4,000 across his desk. His job is to alter Savannah's schedule, sending her to the windowless storage on sub-level 2. No cameras. No witnesses. Following the fake orders, Savannah heads down at 3. As she unlocks the heavy door, the sound of boots stops right behind her. A massive man blocks her only exit. It is a terrifying reality to face. Money can buy a lot of awful things, but it can never buy a clean conscience. With me as this tense moment unfolds, Savannah tries to play it cool, stating she needs to return to the lobby, but the man takes a deliberate step forward, forcing her backward into the suffocating dark of the storage room. She hears the terrifying metallic click of the lock. Upstairs, Frankie is running a digital sweep. He spots Savannah's access card hitting the basement at 3, and his instincts scream. He instantly calls the boss. Dominic is inside that elevator in under 40 seconds. He does not gather his crew. He does not even reach for a weapon. He stalks down that concrete hall like a shadow, like closing the final gap. So silently the predator never hears him coming. Remember this, true loyalty is never just an empty promise. Genuine loyalty is an undeniable action. A single echoing strike shatters the quiet. When Dominic channels his lethal, freezing fury, one punch is all it takes. The attacker folds instantly, crashing into a pile of rusted metal buckets. Savannah remains pinned against the cold shelving, gasping for oxygen. Dominic steps over the unconscious body, locking his pitch-black eyes onto hers. His voice softens into a gentle whisper, asking if she is hurt. After she weakly shakes her head, he guides her out a hidden exit and into a heavy armored truck. Roaring onto Lexington Avenue, she hyperventilates, swearing she has to quit, terrified she is being hunted. Dominic stares at the rain-slicked road, his voice hollow as he agrees. Someone wants her gone. It reveals a simple truth about life. Sometimes the absolute safest sanctuary is the very last place you expect it to be. John is finally snapping the twisted puzzle pieces together. He tells Savannah the hit was an inside job, yet he knows for a fact she is innocent. On her very first day, she never once glanced at the weapon bolted beneath his oak desk. Her genuine ignorance of his violent world makes her different. The boss personally drives her back to Queens, his silent gaze absorbing her harsh reality. He studies the smashed mailboxes, shadowed corners, and heavy deadbolts she relies on. He does not speak a single word. He just parks his truck and sits in the pitch-black cold, waiting until her window finally glows yellow. Here is a simple life lesson. Sometimes, the loudest way to show you care is just making sure someone gets home safely. The second that warm light hits the glass, his jaw tightens and he grabs his phone to make a fateful call. Sitting in the dark, Dominic calls Frankie with an icy order to double Savannah's security, demanding they remain invisible ghosts. Then comes a tectonic shift in the syndicate. He orders a ruthless investigation into his own inner circle. Especially targeting his girlfriend, Camilla, Frankie is stunned, but Dominic recognizes the rotting poison of toxic jealousy. Meanwhile, high up in a luxury penthouse, Camilla is losing her mind. After waiting 2 agonizing hours, the boss has entirely ghosted her. In a blinding fit of rage, she hurls a crystal glass of red wine into the roaring fireplace, shattering like her own ego. It is a brutal life lesson. You can never force someone to value you, no matter how beautifully you dress up the tragic illusion. Her eyes go dead as she grabs her secret burner phone, ready to unleash chaos. The sun barely bleeds through the clouds, but Dominic is already waiting in the break room, gripping a folded paper. He offers Savannah a luxury apartment in Brooklyn Heights, complete with around-the-clock security. Savannah refuses to play that dangerous game. She slides the paper right back across the scratched table, rejecting the most terrifying man in the city. She warns him that accepting this crosses a permanent line. She refuses to become a kept woman in a gilded cage. Dominic does not argue. He expected exactly this kind of fierce self-respect from her. He just nods slowly, a trace of admiration in his dark eyes, asking her to accept his invisible protection instead. We should all take this simple life lesson to heart. Never compromise your independence just for a fleeting sense of safety. Keep your boundaries firm, even when someone powerful offers you the world. The dangers of her street, Savannah agrees to the hidden bodyguards, demanding they remain ghosts. By week 4, little Leo makes heartbreakingly quiet progress. He grabs a notepad as Savannah hands over a box of crayons. He digs out the blue one he swiped from her bag weeks ago. With deliberate little hands, he draws his broken family. A tall man, a blonde woman, a little boy. It is a haunting portrait of his father and his late mother, but then, a heavy, suffocating pause fills the room. Right there, in the empty space next to his tiny figure, the silent child begins drawing a fourth person. Savannah watches, the air catching in her throat. We can all see the profound life lesson unfolding right here. True family is never just about who shares your blood. It is about the rare souls who actually put in the time to stand by you when the world goes dark. Light catches the crinkled paper. The fourth figure is a woman with brown hair, drawn not beside the towering shadow of the father, but anchored firmly to little Leo. Savannah stares down at the heavy wax, a knot forming in her throat. He isn't trying to overwrite the ghost of his dead mother. He just wants a friend. Think about what that means. You never have to erase someone's painful past to become a deeply meaningful part of their future. Blinking back tears, she kisses the blue crayon and hands it back. By Thursday, the tragic air shifts. She retrieves a tiny clay flute, a fragile heirloom untouched for 11 years. Sitting on the rug, she breathes 3 hollow, haunting notes. The boy freezes. The suspense is crushing. Slowly, he creeps toward the music. The camera lingers on the dimly lit parlor. Leo, a fragile boy swallowed by his own silence, shuffles across the rug to press his trembling frame against Savannah. He does not snatch the clay instrument. Instead, he flattens his palm against it, absorbing the musical vibrations straight into his bones. Then, the impossible happens. A soft hum escapes his lips, perfectly matching her note. Down the hallway, Dominic freezes. The ruthless crime boss grips the heavy oak doorframe until his knuckles turn bone white. Terrified of cracking thin ice, he is utterly shattered by the sound of his son finding his voice. The life lesson here is undeniably profound. True patience and gentle kindness will always break down the heavy walls that fear and raw power could never even hope to touch. The camera pans across the penthouse. It is past midnight and the atmosphere feels heavier than the sleeping neon city below. Savannah quietly washes glasses at the sink. Enter Dominic, stepping from the shadows like a hollow ghost crushed beneath the weight of the underworld. He pours a glass of water, his gravelly voice shattering the quiet. Today would have been his late wife's 39th birthday. He details the bloody vengeance he carved through the streets, expecting Savannah to flee. Instead, she slowly dries her hands. She whispers that grief makes monsters of us all, but a single pure reason to live can bring you back. You and I know the lesson here. We cannot judge the tragic paths people walk in blinding pain, as long as they ultimately choose to survive it. Examine the blocking of this tragic scene. Dominic drops his iron guard, his dark eyes heavy with the agony of 2 lost years where grief turned him into a ghost. Savannah acts as his emotional anchor, reminding him he has finally returned to his son. The kitchen grows deafeningly quiet, thick with magnetic tension. He stares at her, stripping away his title, and begs her to use his first name. Savannah immediately steps back, retreating from the dangerous flame. Here is a life lesson we all must carry. Never compromise your personal boundaries, no matter how desperately a broken soul pulls you in. But in this cinematic world, shadows always watch. 2 floors below, his partner Camila stares at this exact intimate frame through a hidden lens, letting venomous jealousy slowly rot her mind. The camera isolates Camila in the pitch-black room, highlighting her psychological decay. She paid a nameless stranger to wire the entire penthouse with hidden lenses, feeding a cancerous paranoia. Illuminated only by the cold monitor, she compulsively rewinds the footage. 3 times she watches Dominic ask the housekeeper to use his real name. Her chest physically caves in. She recognizes that raw devotion in his eyes, the exact vulnerability he buried alongside his dead wife. Yet, in the suffocating dark, Camila absolutely refuses to shed a tear. This brings us to a harsh life lesson. The moment you must spy on your partner to feel secure, The relationship is already a rotting corpse. Paranoia never truly protects you. It merely turns your heart to unfeeling stone, leaving behind a cold monster desperate for control. The lighting shifts to stark, unforgiving shadows. Camila chokes down her grief, allowing venomous vengeance to take the wheel. She understands the deadly stakes. If she physically harms Savannah, Dominic will burn the city to ash, so she chooses psychological warfare, orchestrating a plot to terrify the young woman into fleeing. The camera tracks her wire transfer $3,000 sent to Marlon, a driver drowning in underworld debt. She manipulates the hotel network, ensuring Marlon intercepts the ride request like a spider catching a fly. It is a chilling display of calculated cruelty. There is a vital life lesson woven into this malice. Toxic envy will inevitably turn you into the exact monster you fear most. Destroying an innocent soul, simply to bandage your own shattered ego, guarantees your own absolute destruction. We shoot from the back seat, tight and claustrophobic. Savannah slides into the car, unaware she is stepping into a steel cage. As the neon lights fade, she checks her phone. Cold dread hits her stomach. They are miles off the grid. She asks the driver to pull over. But Marlon stares dead ahead. The vehicle violently jerks into a pitch-black alley, the locks engaging with a sharp click, but Savannah is forged from absolute steel. She refuses to scream, simply weaving her keys between her trembling fingers. You must remember this life lesson. Always stay sharp, and never let blinding panic rob you of your ability to survive. Just as the shadows close in, a black sedan violently swerves out of the darkness, flooding the grim alley with blinding headlights. The camera captures the kinetic chaos. Before Marlon can shift into reverse, a second vehicle seals the exit. Dominic's men had been tracing her every move. Two enforcers step into the harsh headlights, shattering the driver's window into 1,000 pieces before he can blink. The door swings open to reveal Frankie, the loyal lieutenant. He softly drapes a heavy coat over Savannah's, shaking shoulders, swearing the dawn is on his way. 12 minutes later, Dominic's tires screech across the pavement. He pulls her instantly into the safety of his personal car. He never asks if she is hurt. His sharp eyes have already mapped every inch of her trembling form to ensure she is safe. There is a profound life lesson here. True protectors do not waste breath on empty words. They let swift, decisive actions do the heavy lifting when it truly matters. The low engine roar scores the claustrophobic scene as they tear down the desolate highway. The silence inside the cabin is suffocating until Dominic shatters it. His voice rings out like cold steel. He demands to know if someone in his syndicate orchestrated the ambush. Savannah hesitates, agonizing over condemning another woman based on a feeling. Eventually, she quietly breathes Camila's name, detailing the jealous glare she caught earlier. When Dominic asks why she kept this lethal secret, her response holds a profound life lesson about respect. She says she had no right to accuse his family, refusing to make him choose between his partner and a mere employee. That selfless maturity is exactly why this ruthless crime boss is falling for her. She is a pure beacon of light in his violently dark world. Let the camera push in on his tormented expression. Dominic aggressively throws the car into park off the dark highway. He looks deeply into her eyes and drops a shattering confession. He never actually loved Camila. He admits she was merely a hollow distraction. Having felt no true warmth since burying his wife, Savannah softly asks why he would allow a fake person near his traumatized boy. Heavy, crushing regret washes over his face. He assumed the child just needed any mother figure, but now sees he needs a genuine soul. Take this simple life lesson to heart. You can never patch a deep emotional wound by replacing real connection with superficial convenience. He outright refuses to take her home. Instead, he secures her in a heavily guarded suite, stationing his best soldier next door. The bloody underworld war has officially begun. We use a cinematic transition to highlight the staggering contrast. While Savannah sits in a guarded suite begging for one sight to pack her modest life, Dominic steps into his silent penthouse. Camila is fast asleep, oblivious to the impending storm. He wakes her with a voice stripped entirely of humanity, coldly demanding. She vanished from New York within 48 hours. There are no screaming matches. He simply tosses a thick stack of cash and a one-way boarding pass onto the mattress. He admits he lacks hard proof, but he knows exactly what kind of snake shares his bed. Let me share a crucial life lesson with you. Always trust your gut instincts. When someone's energy feels broken, you do not need a confession to prove they are toxic. Protect your peace, cut the heavy cord, and permanently lock the door behind them. Watch her body language as the beautiful illusion shatters. Camila's innocent mask melts away. exposing the hissing venom underneath. She loses control, screaming that he is throwing her away for a mere housekeeper. In a flash of blind rage, she hurls a heavy glass lamp at his head. It explodes into 1,000 glittering shards, but Dominic does not even flinch. Absolute ice in his veins, she furiously packs her designer bags and storms out into the night. But here is the cinematic twist. She is not heading to the airport. The second her heels hit the pavement, she slides into a waiting town car and pulls out a hidden burner phone. Pay close attention to this simple life lesson. People will always reveal their true character the exact second they stop getting what they want. If you want to know who someone truly is, just watch how they handle a bitter rejection. With me, because we are about to peel back the bloody layers of this history. The voice on the burner phone belongs to Camila's uncle, Victor Merrick. He is the phantom pulling every string in this Greek tragedy. Forged in the brutal streets of the Bronx, Victor is the architect of this syndicate war. He runs a massive weapons cartel and trusts no one. Here is the devastating truth. 2 agonizing years ago, Victor was the exact man who paid a sniper or $28,000 to assassinate Dominic on that highway, the very bullet that missed and killed his wife instead. As the camera fades, remember this simple life lesson. Your most dangerous enemies are usually the ones operating quietly in the background. The loudest guy in the room is never your biggest problem. The real threat is always the quiet observer waiting patiently in the dark. The camera pans across the smoldering wreckage of Victor's warehouses. Here is where a simple tragedy bleeds into pure, irreversible madness. The hired sniper missed his intended mark entirely, and the rogue bullet claimed the life of Dominic's beloved wife instead. We watched the blinding grief instantly mold him into a force of ruthless vengeance. In just 9 days, $11 million turned to gray ash, and 2 enforcers were buried. But without hard proof, these syndicates locked into a suffocating Cold War. Then, Victor played his darkest card by sending his own niece, Camilla, into the penthouse. Revenge is a relentless wildfire. It burns everyone it touches, leaving you standing alone in the ruins with completely empty hands. To the midnight hour of our story, you and I are stepping into a damp, smoke-choked basement, where the lighting flickers like a dying heartbeat. Camilla backs into a filthy corner, shivering under the absolute zero of Uncle Victor's stare. For 8 long months, her solitary mission was to locate Dominic's hidden little boy. She failed entirely, but a cornered animal will do desperate, ugly things to save her own skin. She whispers a sickening secret about Dominic's newfound vulnerability, a quiet, unassuming hotel housekeeper named Savannah. It is a ruthless betrayal of a woman who has no idea she stands in the crosshairs. Do not ever place your trust in someone willing to throw an innocent soul to the wolves. They will eventually sell you out just the same. Trembling fingers push the fortress blueprints across the rusted table. Camilla empties every secret she possesses. She describes the exact way. Dominic looks at Savannah, the simple housekeeper, the same haunted, desperate gaze he used to reserve for his murdered wife. You can practically hear the rusty gears turning in Victor's mind as the low lighting casts jagged shadows over his face. He drafts a nightmare, planning to snatch the girl and the boy to bait a deadly trap. He knows Dominic will walk into the fire unarmed just to keep them breathing. Victor laughs, mocking Camilla for her pathetic jealousy over a maid. Jealousy does nothing but blind you to the larger board. While you rot with envy over someone else, you leave your own fragile life completely exposed to ruin. Above the city, the sheer gravity of betrayal sinks deep into the polished floorboards of the sprawling penthouse. Frankie, the fiercely loyal right-hand man, marches in clutching the undeniable proof. He has swept the dark corners of the apartment and pulled 3 hidden listening devices from the walls. Worse still, the access logs reveal a devastating truth. Camilla is not just a spy, she shares Victor's very blood. Dominic slams his heavy fist onto the mahogany desk, shaking a glass until it fractures into jagged pieces. Imagine the psychological horror of realizing the monster you hunted was sleeping down the hall. Keep your inner circle incredibly tight, and always verify the souls you welcome into your sanctuary. The deadliest blades always strike from the inside. Realization tears Dominic apart from the inside out. The camera closes in on his tightening jaw. The vile thought that he let a cartel spy breathe the same air as his fragile son for 8 long months makes his blood run ice cold. He kicks his chair back so violently, it splinters the drywall, barking orders at Frankie to triple the security detail on Savannah. He demands she be locked away in the safe house tonight. Down below, 38 floors beneath this brewing war, Savannah is just folding a tiny paper pigeon under a warm yellow lamp, completely unaware of the heavy shadow falling over her life. Ignorance might feel peaceful for a fleeting moment, but staying blind to your surroundings can be fatal when the hungry wolves are already waiting at your door. Let's look at this piece by piece, shall we? The tragic contrast of this moment is meant to break your heart. Savannah sits in the quiet warmth of her room, pouring her gentle soul into a folded paper pigeon, praying it will help little Leo find his voice. She rests the tiny bird on her nightstand, entirely blind to the hurricane forming just out of view. She cannot see the ruthless hit squad moving through the wet city streets, or the black sedan idling by the staff exit. She is just a good woman caught in the crosshairs of a generational war. No matter how pure your heart is, you can still find yourself swept up in the destructive wake of others. You must always stay alert and fiercely protect your own peace, because the storm does not care if you are innocent. It does not hesitate for a single heartbeat. At exactly 7 in the morning, he forces her door open, entirely skipping the gentle romance she expected. He drops a heavy, classified file right into her lap, and the harsh sound of paper hitting fabric shatters her reality. He tells her the brutal truth. Camila belongs to the very cartel that murdered his wife, and now Savannah is marked just because she dared to care for him. He pulls rank, commanding her to move to the underground safe house without a single argument. When she stammers about losing her job, he silences her with a forced, fully paid leave. Sometimes the universe brutally rips you from your comfortable routines to shield you from dangers you cannot see. Learn to embrace the sudden, uncomfortable shifts. Anna absorbs this earth-shattering blow with incredible quiet grace. She simply asks for one heartbreaking favor. She must visit her old apartment to save a tin box holding the final memories of her late brother. Frankie offers to drive her, but Dominic is consumed by protective terror and refuses to let her out of his sight. By 5 in the evening, their armored car idles on a forgotten street corner as rain begins to mist. She runs inside and returns clutching a worn canvas bag, holding only a frayed notebook and a simple cloth rabbit. Never lose sight of your roots. Even when the world spins entirely out of control, the humble, quiet things that anchor your soul will always matter so much more than whatever sits gathering dust in your bank account. Stick with me here, because this is where the fragile piece shatters into dust. Savannah steps onto the cracked pavement just as Dominic pushes open the heavy metal door, and the quiet street explodes into absolute chaos. 2 dark sedans violently screech around the corner, trapping them. 4 masked men pour out, guns raised before the tires even stop smoking. Frankie screams a desperate warning over the deafening crack of gunfire. Innocent bystanders dive into the dirt, crying out in sheer terror. Without a second thought, Dominic violently pulls Savannah down behind the massive steel frame of the engine block. True leaders do not freeze when the fire starts burning. They step directly into the line of danger to shield the vulnerable from the incoming flames. The real danger is completely invisible from the chaotic ground. 4 stories above the panic, a hidden sniper tracks their frantic movements from a bleak rooftop. Dominic catches a tiny, lethal flash of light in the corner of his eye, and his protective instincts take over entirely. He throws his broad shoulders directly into the path of the bullet, taking the devastating impact meant for Savannah. The heavy round tears through his flesh, dropping him instantly to the cold, wet pavement. Savannah does not even understand what has happened until the crushing weight of this unstoppable man falls onto her trembling hands. Real love is never found in grand gestures or empty words. It is measured entirely by what you are willing to sacrifice when everything falls apart. The panic inside the escaping vehicle is thick and suffocating. Savannah lets out an agonizing scream as Frankie guns down the last attacker, forcing the remaining cowards to flee into the shadows. They haul Dominic into the back seat, tires screaming as they tear through the city at 80 miles an hour toward a hidden clinic. Savannah presses her shaking hands against his torn chest, her clothes painted a tragic red through choked sobs. She begs him to tell her why he would trade his empire for a nobody. Dominic forces his eyes open, fading fast, and whispers that she is not just a housekeeper anymore. Your job title will never define your worth in this life. The way you touch the hearts of others is what truly makes your spirit completely irreplaceable. You and I need to brace ourselves, because the emotional weight of this scene is unbearable. Savannah weeps softly, pleading with Dominic to keep breathing. He manages a weak, trembling smile and confesses his late wife said those exact same words before she passed. But Savannah refuses to let him fade, demanding he survive for his little boy. Her voice breaks as she finally admits she needs him too, just before he slips into silence in her arms. What follows are 3 hours of agonizing surgery under harsh fluorescent lights, where a single millimeter separates life and death. He survives, but Savannah sits in the sterile hallway, her ruined clothes stiff with dried blood, staring at the floor in silent shock. Survival itself often leaves the absolute deepest scars. The suffocating quiet of the corridor shatters when Frankie's boots hit the floor. He drapes his coat over Savannah's shivering shoulders and whispers a secret that shifts her entire world. 2 weeks ago, the boss finally stopped chasing ghosts and started craving a future. The sole reason for his dangerous new hope was her. That confession breaks the final wall around her battered heart. 18 grueling hours bleed by before Dominic forces his eyes open. In the gloom, he turns his heavy head and she is right there. Slumped in a rigid chair, her clothes crusted in his dried blood, she refused to run. You and I must remember this simple truth. The rare souls who anchor you in the pitch black are the only ones who earn the right to stand beside you in the dawn. It feels hollow, alive only through the rhythmic hum of the monitors. Savannah has endured 3 rotations of hospital staff, swallowing her exhaustion to keep vigil. Dominic watches the shadows beneath her eyes and chooses absolute silence, offering her rest. Sometimes the purest form of love is demanding absolutely nothing. By dawn they wheel him into a suite washed in bright sun. Just after noon, Frankie leads little Leo inside. Savannah stands at the sink, scrubbing rust-colored stains from her hands. She turns at the sound of tiny shoes, but the boy drifts right past her. He scales the unhurt side of the mattress and presses his little fingers over his father's bruised fist. It is a quiet, anchoring gravity that finally binds their broken pieces together. The boy does not make a sound, but hot tears finally break past his eyelashes. For the first time in 24 months, this shattered kid lets himself cry. Dominic wraps his one good arm around his son, absorbing that crushing wave of grief. True healing only sparks the second we drop the exhausting act of being invincible. Near the door, Savannah hesitates, feeling like a trespasser in a holy sanctuary. But the crime boss finds her and gives a deliberate nod. What happens next is pure cinematic poetry. Little Leo turns his face, catches Savannah's stare, and pushes his hands against his father's ribs. He is silently ordering the ruthless Dawn to make room. Dominic slides over and Savannah steps into the frame, taking her rightful place beside them both. Pay attention to the subtle framing here. Little Leo extends his arms, grasping Savannah's trembling fingers and his father's calloused knuckles, dragging their hands together. An hour fades, and the boy is asleep, anchored between them. The second Savannah shifts her weight to leave, Dominic's voice cracks the quiet. It is rough, ragged, and stripped of pride as he asks her to stay. The greatest bravery a human can show is not bleeding alone, but daring to lay down the shield. The terrifying king of the underworld exposes his throat right here. He pours out his feelings for her, while brutally laying bare the lethal consequences of his orbit. He gives her a golden bridge out of hell. If she wants to vanish into safety, he swears on his life he will let her walk away without a fight. He promises to buy her a ghost existence anywhere on the map. Savannah stares at the floor, dragging a jagged piece of her past into the light. She confesses her brother died because she turned her back for 4 minutes. She made a blood oath never to walk out on someone she loved again. Yet she fears her soul is too fragile for his world of bullets and betrayal. Dominic traps her gaze, replying that they will just have to bend the world to fit them. He plans to burn Merrick to ash, hand the empire to Frankie, and buy a quiet dawn for his family. Savannah whispers that men like him never get to just walk away, but true freedom always demands a toll, a hard lesson we all must learn. Dominic silences her panic, vowing to pay whatever it costs. Savannah drops her gaze, and in a brilliant shift of power, she takes the wheel. She turns her hand over, locking her fingers tight against his bruised knuckles. Her mind is drowning in chaos, but she refuses to flee while Merrick is hunting them. She holds her ground for the boy, and more importantly, for herself. There is profound beauty in realizing you can only save others when you finally fight for your own happiness. Dominic shuts his eyes, tension melting from his scarred jaw as pure relief washes over him. Beyond the doorframe, Frankie leans against the wall. He watches the bleeding king, the sleeping heir, and the iron-willed woman stitching them together. Having served 3 bosses, Frankie knows this is the first time he is looking at a real family. Heaven help the fool who tries to burn it down. With me across the city, into the belly of the beast. In a rotting basement, Victor Merrick violently unrolls a set of blueprints. His lead executioner leans against the brick, swallowing vodka, eyes void of human warmth. Merrick spits out the venomous truth. Dominic walked away from the ambush breathing. Does the predator retreat? Never. It is a tragic flaw of our world that when monsters cannot defeat the strong, they drag the innocent into the fire. Merrick stabs a finger into the paper, swearing that if the king will not die, they will steal his son. 5 suffocating days evaporate. Dominic is caged in a medical sling. He cannot steer a wheel or raise his left shoulder. But his dominant hand does not shake. He can still pull a trigger. For a father poised in wrath, that is the only leverage he requires. Miles away, Savannah and the boy are buried inside a Brooklyn safe house. From the street it mimics an elegant brownstone, complete with heavy mahogany concealing solid steel. Frankie is not gambling with their lives. He stations 8 enforcers on a brutal rotation, sentries in the foyer, snipers on the roof, and 2 armed men planted right on the living room's sofa. It is a flawless vault. But the cruelest tragedies always begin inside the walls, teaching us that misplaced faith is far deadlier than any bullet. Merrick has been playing a quiet game of chess months before he sank his hooks into one of Frankie's own. Meet Tony Russo, a Bottom-tier soldier drowning in massive debt to the underground casinos. Panic has stripped away his loyalty, and now, the rival boss owns his soul outright. Hidden by the chaos, Tony slid onto the security roster without a second glance. It is a grim reminder that when panic takes the wheel, we blow past the stop signs meant to keep us alive. The brownstone is swallowed by the dead of night. Tony takes the graveyard shift in the kitchen. Just after 1, he pours 2 mugs of black coffee, dumping a chemical sedative into the liquid. By 2, both guards are slumped sideways, dead to the world. Tony sits paralyzed in the suffocating dark, listening to little Leo breathing in the nursery. Guilt is eating him alive. At exactly 3, his phone violently illuminates the shadows. The wolves are at the door. Camila and 4 tactical shooters glide through the basement entrance with a cloned key, moving over the hardwood like phantoms. Downstairs, the guards drop like stones, choked out by chemical rags before they can reach their holsters. 2 floors up, Savannah's eyes snap open. She does not hear a weapon, just the unnatural vacuum of a heavy breath in the corridor. Keeping her brother alive for 11 years forged her nurse system into a tripwire. Trauma is a merciless instructor, but it builds the armor we need when the Reaper knocks. She throws herself off the mattress, kicking open the nursery door. The boy is awake, paralyzed with dread, crushing a stuffed rabbit to his chest. She snatches him up, burying his face in her neck, and praying for silence. She pivots toward the exit, but the bulbs violently flare to life. Camila blocks the threshold, a loaded weapon in hand, backed by masked mercenaries. Assassin sneers, writing Savannah off as a nobody paid to sweep floors. But Savannah refuses to shatter. She shoves the boy behind her spine, turning her body into a shield, and coldly orders the killer to take her instead. The purest measure of courage is found in the dark, when we offer our blood to buy another heartbeat. Camila barks out a venomous laugh and violently drags them into the freezing night, hoods yanked down over their eyes. You and I need to unpack this next frame together. 20 minutes later, the rat Tony is collapsed on the kitchen tiles, choking on his betrayal. He heard the muffled, terrified wail of that little boy shoved into the van. It mirrored the exact cry of his own young nephew, and that single echo completely shatters what is left of his rotting conscience. He traded his honor to clear a debt, but throwing a child to the wolves is a cliff he refuses to jump. It forces us to admit that even cowards harbor an ember of grace. Adrenaline overrides his terror. He slaps the guards awake, spitting out a confession and the enemy's coordinates. The warning reaches Frankie, who dials Dominic at 5:18 in the dawn, delivering the fatal news: his family has been stolen. Before the line goes dead, the Don is tearing IV tubes from his veins. Crippled on his left side, Dominic uses his bared teeth and his right hand to lock a holster to his hip. Frankie begs him to stay down, but the father vanishes, replaced by an apex predator. He snarls that they are his blood, and he is leading the war party himself. Miles away, Savannah shivers on the concrete of a frozen warehouse. The camera pushes in close on the freezing concrete. Savannah wraps her arms fiercely around Leo, humming a desperate lullaby. The boy shakes violently, his eyes wide. Slowly, his lips part, fragile breath escapes, forming a miraculous syllable. Sav. He's calling her name. Is a profound truth: the family we choose is far stronger than the blood in our veins. She buries her tear-streaked face into his hair. Suddenly, the heavy iron door screams open. Camila stalks into the dim light. the steel of her pistol catching the shadows, her voice dripping with cruel mockery. Yet Savannah does not break. She shoves the child behind her and locks eyes with the killer. She tells her she is no heartless monster like Merrick, that she will never shoot an innocent boy. And in that suffocating silence, the assassin's cold hand actually begins to tremble. Step into the dark together, you and I, and watch this tragedy unfold. The suffocating silence shatters with the sharp, echoing crack of a rifle, driven by a desperate fatherly madness. Dominic Vasari leads 12 loyal souls into an absolute slaughterhouse. Vehicles glide like phantoms toward a concrete fortress, swallowed by the shadow of a decaying refinery. Up front, Tony Russo grips the wheel, cold sweat dripping down his neck, praying for one righteous act before his violent end. The headlights die as they reach the edge of the compound. Hold on to this brutal truth, never underestimate a man who has already watched his entire world burn to ash. With ruthless precision, Dominic's crew goes through the outer perimeter in 11 terrifying seconds. The camera shakes as Frankie shatters the loading bay doors, pouring inside with his men like vengeful spirits. But the cycle of violence is never a clean fantasy. 2 of Dominic's soldiers are thrown against the cold concrete, their stories ending instantly. One wife is condemned to an empty bed, and a little girl is left waiting by the window. Frankie steps over the bodies, whispering their names into the sulfurous smoke. It is a devastating reality. Blind loyalty always cashes its checks in blood, and the indifferent streets never weep for the broken families left behind. The defending guards unleash a wall of lead, but Dominic simply wades through the storm. His arm bound tightly to his chest, he refuses to flinch, dropping a guard with 3 methodical shots. Pull closer, because you and I must witness this narrow corridor. The camera pushes down a suffocating tunnel. Waiting in the shadows is Merrick, wearing the hollow smile of a dead man. He spits that he has waited years for this. Dominic's expression is carved from stone. He simply replies that Merrick stole his only son, meaning every violent debt is settled tonight. Let that sit with you. Vengeance is a bitter poison that always burns both houses to ash. Merrick completely shatters. His first wild bullet tears past Dominic's ear. Dominic fires back with mechanical coldness, dropping his rival. But as he falls, Merrick unleashes one desperate final round. The bullet slips perfectly beneath the heavy armor plate, sending Dominic crashing violently against the damp brick wall. The camera lingers as feeling drains from Dominic's legs, sliding him down the unforgiving brick. He fights the dark long enough to see Frankie step from the shadows behind Merrick. There are no dramatic monologues. Frankie simply raises his weapon and abruptly ends the man who ruined so many lives. 3 doors down, the deafening boom rattles the plotter. Camila hears the approaching violence and completely unravels, her knuckles turning white around her pistol. Savannah sees the absolute terror in the girl's eyes. Without hesitation, she throws her own body into the line of fire, tightly shielding little Leo. This is the raw truth about courage. It is not the absence of fear, but the fierce willingness to bleed for the innocent when your own legs are giving out. Cold steel in Camila's hands vibrates with panic, shadows cutting across her tear-stained face. Savannah does not rush her. She takes one deliberate step forward, projecting profound calm, and softly asks the broken girl to drop the gun. The fragile facade shatters. Camila breaks down, screaming that she sold her soul to this violent syndicate and has nothing left. Savannah meets her desperate gaze, whispering that her heart still beats, and that alone is enough. This is a vital lesson. No matter how deep of a grave you think you have dug, your life reclaims its value the second you finally drop the shovel. The suffocating anger evaporates. Camila crumples to the floor weeping, the heavy weapon sliding away. Savannah kicks it aside, scoops up Leo, and runs into the dark. The door explodes inward. Frankie sweeps the room, finger tightening on the trigger. Savannah screams for him to stop, begging him to spare the weeping girl. The camera captures the conflict on Frankie's face. He pauses for one agonizing second, lowers his weapon, and coldly cuffs. Camila Savannah immediately carries Leo down the stairwell, the air choking with gunpowder. Then she spots him. Dominic is fading against the damp brickwork, skin pale as ash. She crashes to her knees, screaming his name to pull him back from the void. His breath is terrifyingly shallow as he begs to see his boy. She presses Leo against his uninjured chest. The child hides his face in the blood-ruined coat and whispers a single, world-shattering word: Dad. True love is the final anchor we possess when the dark tries to pull us under. That simple word was only the 3rd time the boy ever spoke. The untouchable boss completely shatters. Dominic buries his face in his son's hair, letting raw tears wash the blood from his jacket. Savannah weeps beside them. Even a hardened enforcer like Frankie turns toward the shadows to clear his eyes. Sirens finally wail in the distance, arriving intentionally late. Frankie's crew has already dissolved like ghosts, leaving Merrick's empire to rot and Camilla. Frankie made a calculated call to the authorities before the raid. He swapped a violent execution for a federal kidnapping charge. It is a brilliant strategy. The sharpest leaders do not need to endlessly shed blood to win. They simply rewrite the board. She keeps her life, but the next 30 years belong to a concrete cell. Scene cuts from Camilla's prison block to a sterile trauma room. Dominic is fighting a visceral battle for survival. He endures 2 brutal surgeries over 14 agonizing days. The heavy bullet had shredded his side. A clandestine surgeon, scrubbing his blood from her hands in a steel basin, admits to Frankie she assumed the boss was already a corpse. But certain men simply refuse to quietly fade. For 3 painfully long weeks, Dominic wrestles with suffocating agony. His body is a broken shell, yet the lighting softly shifts. Every morning at 7, Savannah arrives with fresh coffee. Every afternoon, his boy leaves a folded paper bird on the nightstand. It is a beautiful truth. Genuine love from your family provides the miraculous strength needed to stare down the dark and survive. Stick with me, because you and I are about to watch the power dynamic shift. The camera catches it on the 4th morning. Savannah uses his real name in front of the soldiers, firmly ordering him to rest his wounded arm by the window. Frankie focuses on his newspaper, failing to hide a knowing smile. 10 days later, the real trial unfolds in the claustrophobic back room of a Mulberry Street joint. 11 ruthless bosses sit around a table, reeking of stale garlic and bleach. Weapons hidden under napkins. The tension is thick enough to cut. Dominic enters, arms strapped tightly to his ribs, and alters the syndicate's history. He looks his generals in the eye and calmly announces his resignation. Never forget this lesson. Understanding exactly when to take off your heavy crown is the most powerful move a king will ever make. The camera pans across the table. Dominic keeps his tone chillingly level as he hands the syndicate over to Frankie. The dining room drops 20 degrees. A captain slams his fist against the wood, growling that death is the only accepted retirement plan in their business. Dominic calmly counters. He states his mind remains available, but his violent hands are retired. His son comes first. Then, a bitter lieutenant makes a fatal error, muttering a crude slur into his whiskey about Savannah. Shaking with the searing agony of his torn side, Dominic slowly pushes himself out of his chair. His towering presence suffocates the room. He coldly promises they will address her with absolute respect, or they will swallow their own teeth. Keep this close to your heart. A real man will gladly burn his empire to the ground to demand respect for the woman who saved his soul. Amber liquor catches the dim light as Frankie rises, pledging a sacred oath. He swears to uphold the clean boundaries. Dominic bled. For no poison on the streets, only disciplined trade. He vows to defend the Vasari bloodline until his last breath. 11 heavy glasses rise into the thick cigar smoke, and a brutal era quietly dies. Later, beneath the stark glow of a quiet clinic, Savannah asks if he is truly ready to let the Mafia go. Dominic reaches across the sterile sheets, his bruised fingers finding hers. He whispers that the syndicate was his father's nightmare. But tonight he finally chooses the dawn. You are never forced to swallow the poison your family pours for you. You alone hold the pen to write your final chapter. The dust of war finally settles with Merrick buried. Dominic knows Frankie has the raw grit to handle the bleeding streets. No rival dares to strike a Vasari seeking peace. Savannah sits at his bedside, her voice dropping to a fragile whisper as she asks what he truly wants from his remaining days. Dominic pulls a ragged breath into his battered lungs, describing a future that breaks her heart with its simplicity. He wants to walk his son to the school gates, share morning coffee with the woman who saved him, and sleep without reaching for cold steel in the dark. True wealth is never found in ruthless power. It is simply the grace to feel entirely safe inside your own home. Savannah lets out a warm laugh, finally stepping into the light. You and I have walked through the darkest corners of this story together, and now we finally witness the healing. Dominic slowly extends his scarred hand to cover hers. He refuses to rush the fragile moment, desperately needing a human anchor in the shifting tide. She does not pull away. They sit wrapped in a profound silence for 20 straight minutes. Across the room, little Leo sleeps soundly, his tiny fingers locked around the first para rabbit Savannah ever folded for him. The quiet is broken as Maggie, a gentle nurse, steps softly onto the linoleum, offering a warm foil bundle of homemade banana bread baked just before dawn. A beautiful lesson breathes right here in this quiet room, the smallest, Most unexpected acts of pure human kindness are exactly what it takes to slowly rebuild a profoundly broken soul. Maggie lingers near the door, her eyes tracing the bruised man, the exhausted woman, and the sleeping boy. After 35 years in these sterile corridors, she has seen thousands of shattered lives. Yet she offers a slow, knowing nod. They are a true family now. 6 weeks later, Dominic walks out, but you and I know he refuses to return to a cold Manhattan penthouse. Instead, they pull up to a weathered 3-story brownstone in Park Slope, framed by a red door and a golden maple. He uses perfectly clean documents, ensuring no rival can trace his ghost. It leaves us with a powerful truth. You can absolutely rewrite your destiny, but only if you are willing to trade the hollow illusion of power for the quiet, unshakable foundation of lasting peace. You might expect a former kingpin to hide behind cold marble floors, but the narrative sharply pivots here. Dominic chooses an ordinary home, defined by crooked kitchen tiles and a creaking wooden porch, yet Savannah makes the most definitive move. She flatly refuses to share his roof. Instead, she secures a cramped apartment above a Brooklyn flower shop, handing over hard cash and pressing her own name onto the worn doorbell. She looks the former Don dead in the eye, declaring she will walk on her own 2 feet rather than step through the gilded doors he opens for her. Dominic simply nods, his chest tightening with a profound, quiet respect. The takeaway here strikes deep. You must never let another person hold the keys to your personal independence, no matter how much they love you. One knows better than to corner a woman fiercely rebuilding her soul. Savannah maintains her relentless hustle, scrubbing hotel floors twice a week to guard her freedom. But for the hours she watches little Leo, Dominic drafts a spotless legal contract with formal taxes and health benefits. In this safe haven, Leo finally blooms. He forms clear sentences, whispering his love to Savannah, while folding paper rabbits every morning, a quiet survivor piecing his childhood back together. Yet old instincts bleed through. Dominic attempts a classic flex, dropping glossy brochures for elite academies fortified by heavy stone gates. It serves as a harsh reality check. Throwing endless piles of cold cash at a traumatized family will never buy real, lasting progress. Let us look at this piece by piece, shall we? Savannah barely registers the glossy brochures before sweeping them off the table. She slaps down a form for a normal public school, demanding that Leo mix with everyday kids. Dominic bristles, his pride flaring as he boasts he can buy access to any elite academy. Savannah delivers a devastating blow to his ego. She insists his son must learn to survive in the real world, rather than hiding inside a fragile bubble of untouchable wealth. The former boss stares at her, deeply humbled, and silently signs his name in black ink. Soon after, Savannah enrolls in night classes, funding her tuition with hard tips and heavy loans. True power is keeping your feet firmly planted in the dirt, while everyone else desperately tries to fly. Dominic uncovers her night school bill. The old boss is instantly triggered. Used to a world that never tells him no, he demands to pay the balance in full. Savannah stands wheeze like iron. She tells him she must earn this degree with her own sweat, cutting deep by adding that he could never understand, having never struggled for an honest dollar in his life. The heavy truth sinks into his bones, silencing him completely. Fast forward to a golden Sunday. Savannah cooks her grandmother's lasagna, intentionally burning the edges to fill the room with the warm scent of love. Little Leo takes a massive bite, his dark eyes lighting up with pure joy. It beautifully proves that the absolute best things in life are the ones you slowly build from scratch with your own scarred hands. Nick pries the cork from a dusty bottle of red wine, glaring at it like an ancient enemy. With a steady hand, he pushes it away and pours a glass of pomegranate juice instead. 7 full weeks, entirely boober. That quiet discipline fundamentally alters a man. Later, beneath the porch light, little Leo falls asleep in Savannah's lap, clutching a crumpled paper rabbit. Dominic finally strips away his armor. His voice is ragged as he confesses his terror of proposing, fearing she would only say yes out of a heavy sense of obligation. Savannah tilts her head, her eyes catching the soft glow. She whispers that she owes him nothing. She simply feels genuinely loved. True loyalty is never about keeping a tally. It is about standing firm when someone desperately needs you the most. Lean in for their first genuine kiss. It is painfully careful, the connection of 2 bruised souls choosing each other against impossible odds. But you and I cannot forget the villain lingering in the shadows. The scene cuts to a freezing concrete cell in upstate New York. Camila shivers behind iron bars, brutally stripped of her glamour. She hunches over a thin desk, rewriting a desperate letter to her mother for the 3rd time. Her polished facade shatters. She finally admits she was wrong, confessing that chasing a toxic, flashy lifestyle was never worth betraying her own flesh and blood. Every action carries a brutal toll. Sometimes, a person must lose absolutely everything to finally realize what actually mattered in the first place. Leela hides that letter for 6 grueling months before scraping together the nerve to mail it. Facing your own demons is always the heaviest step. We have watched this saga unfold, and the ultimate twist is not some deafening Mafia shootout. It is the quiet revelation that pure kindness cannot be bought with dirty money. A softly folded paper rabbit and a fiercely steady heart heal deep traumas that $1 million stacked dollars could never even scratch. Finding a soul who refuses to run when the nights get terrifying is the rarest prize. The true heavy hitters do not wear tailored suits or bleed the city dry. They wear faded name tags and hustle until their bones ache. We must revere the quiet, everyday grinders, for they are the only ones truly holding this broken world together. These quiet heroes sit on freezing hospital floors, folding paper toys for children who have forgotten how to smile. Look closely at your own circle today. Who is your steady anchor in the dark, fighting for you without ever asking for a payout? Go tell them you finally see their struggle. If the heavy emotional weight of this ride hit you in the chest, drop a like, share this story with your crew, and subscribe so we can deliver more cinematic storylines every single day. Step into the comments and name the personal hero holding your world together. We read every single word, and your truth might inspire our next video. Wherever you are right now, fiercely guard your peace and never stop dropping unexpected kindness into the dark. You never know whose life you are saving.
Dominic is a powerful and dangerous man, but one of the most important parts of his growth is learning the difference between protection and possession. At first, his instinct is to control everything. He wants to move Savannah into a safe apartment, surround her with guards, and decide what is best for her. In his world, danger is real, so control feels necessary. But Savannah teaches him something important. Safety without choice can become another kind of cage. She refuses the apartment he offers because she knows that accepting too much too quickly could change the meaning of their relationship. She wants to help Leo, but she also wants to keep her independence, her job, her name, and her ability to leave on her own feet. This is an important educational lesson about healthy relationships. Loving someone does not mean owning them. Protecting someone does not mean making every decision for them. Real love respects boundaries, even when fear makes control tempting. Dominic begins to understand this. He does not force Savannah to accept gifts. He listens when she says no. He lets her pay her own rent, pursue her own education, and define her own place in his life. That respect is what makes their relationship meaningful. It is not just passion or gratitude. It is trust. The story also shows that Savannah's love is not blind. She cares for Dominic and Leo, but she does not surrender her judgment. She asks for time. She chooses carefully. She stays because she wants to, not because she is trapped. For viewers, the lesson is powerful. Love should make people freer, not smaller. The right person will want to protect your life without taking control of it. True love does not say, "You belong to me." It says, "You are safe with me, and you are still yourself."